This DJI RS4 helped me to recreate a scene from Bad Boys 4, which fixed a scene that I just couldn't get right in the film I'm working on right now, and that is by doing a composite moving time lapse. So let me tell you how it worked. I've been working on my first feature film for a while. We did a bunch of shooting last year and I had to head back down to the beach to get a few shots that I wasn't able to fit in. The kids weren't involved, it was just me, so it was no big deal, but I was having a really hard time trying to figure out how to fit in the scene transitioning from one point to the next, where essentially the premise is the family's on vacation at the beach, but the dad can't let go of work and he gets pulled into a big project that comes up and he's gonna be up all night working. So when she finds out what happens, she gets angry and walks off, and there's a big fight between the two and basically culminates in it blowing up. She walks off and turns and basically states the whole premise of the movie. And she shuts the bedroom door, goes to bed without him, locks him out. So I needed to figure out a way to get from this shot here, this whole empty space, transitioning to this point where it's supposed to be hours later and he's been up working by himself. She comes out, the argument continues again and ends up once again with her leaving and he's here by himself. So this section in between, I need to figure out what am I gonna get here to transition from one to the next. And I initially thought stuff like, oh, I can show the time on the clock, then he goes to do this, and then it's doing some kind of email, then talking on the phone, gets a beer, look at the clock again, and back and forth. But I was thinking that's just kind of boring and it doesn't seem like much of an interesting shot. So I was like just racking my head because I needed to go in less than a week to film it. And I was thinking, how am I gonna make this part more interesting? And I remember this scene from Bad Boys, the most recent one, where they're working on a project, trying to figure out who was behind whatever was going on in the movie. I don't remember, but there was a scene where there was a moving shot of the camera, basically with a time lapse going on. So it shows them doing all kinds of stuff, doing research as the camera's slowly panning. But then there was another shot, it showed a few other things happen, then it switched to another one where the camera was right behind one of the main characters, focused on him. So it looks like he's in real time while there's a time lapse going on behind him. So I thought, you know, it would be cool to combine those two types of shots and really help. And with this, you're able to use a tracking mode where you can set start and end points and do it over and over and over again. So I set it up and did a quick test shot at home, some quick masking to see how it looked, and I thought, you know what? I think this will be really cool. It could work out nicely. So I had a plan together of how I wanted to do it, and I was motivated, ready to go, and to get this filming done at the beach condo. So I'm gonna show you a clip here that I recorded a little behind the scenes of how we set up while I was there, and then we'll get back in and see what the final results looked like. Just finished up filming a scene that I based off of a scene I saw in Bad Boys, because I was trying to think of how to pass some time. And I thought a time lapse would be cool, but a moving time lapse that this DJI gimbal helped. But before that, you always want to set up lighting, make everything look good. So I set up a light here as if it was the light coming from the overhead doorway. So this is dark, but when I'm in the background, kind of blurred out because it's focusing on me on the table. This part stands out among everything else in the back. So whatever I'm doing in here, you see it versus all the dark that's around it. And then for overhead, I just use the house lights here. Is right over top of me, so it worked out right. I set my white balance based on this and then just matched all my other lights to that. And then these are really useful. When you have lamps like this, the bulbs are usually too bright and look blown out, so I just hook one of these over the lampshade and you set it to the temperature you want, the brightness, and so just enough light and it looks good in the background. Same with that one. And this I set up just overhead because I end up here on the couch and maybe as if there was a lamp here. So again, somewhat realistic, trying to get light that's kind of motivated. And then we come to the gimbal. So I've got my Sony FX3 on here. I set it up in the tracking mode and I set my start point facing this way, end point facing this way. And then you just hit start. The camera's hooked up through Bluetooth, so every time I hit start on here, it automatically turns it to the same spot that it starts each time, and it automatically starts the camera. So all I have to do is hit the one button on the touchscreen, and it does the same thing over and over again. I did it about 6 times. A couple times with me being focused here in the middle, a couple times with me walking off in the background there, and then again over here to where I end up on the couch, so that I can mask all those out and it looks like all the stuff I'm doing going on in the background as the camera's moving, because that little bit of camera motion kind of helps with the feeling of time passing because the camera's slowly moving as well. And if you were just hand holding that or on a tripod, it'd be really hard to get the same timing every time, which makes it difficult. Again, in my initial review, this handle in the back has been really useful for using the monitor especially when you have all these cables and stuff hooked up. Trying to look at the little screen here is difficult, so having a monitor like this Ninja is helpful. But this DJI Ronin S4 has helped me to get a shot that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do, so technology really opens up some cool possibilities. So looking back real quick, we left here, she walked off, shut the door, he's frustrated, gets his drink and walks off. So I thought, okay, I gotta transition from here to the time lapse, whatever's gonna happen, and end up here with him working on the computer. You hear the door open, he looks up, she comes out and starts talking to him. So what I came up with was this shot here. And you'll see I just started with the rough mask here, and you'll see people pop in and out. I'm gonna have to go through and really fine tune this to make it look good, but I just did a quick mask to see if it worked okay. And what I had was standing there like in the original shot, grab the beer, come over. I was like, I'll just throw my bag there, like had my stuff there, come and sit down, you get ready, get the computer out, start working. And as I do that, you see the camera slowly moving, have me fade in, going to get a drink from the fridge. And like I said, with the light there, it's shining on him, so you see him in the background while the area right here is a little bit darker. Making calls, taking drinks, working on stuff, acting like he's working with people on the team. And then another version of him over here with the drink, going around concept ideas or whatever for the project he's working on, making some more phone calls. You know, basically a lot of stuff going on while he's working on all this stuff. I wanted to show the computer ending up over here, since we wanted to end up on the couch, and basically going over there, getting on the couch like we said, him disappearing, and then it'll cut to that close-up shot of the eyes looking over. And then you kind of have an idea of where everything is during this time too. From that shot, you see both the rooms, the whole condo, and then you know who's talking from where. So this gimbal here made it possible. It was really cool. There's so many different modes on here and things you don't typically use, because normally you're like, okay, I'm gonna get my gimbal, I'm gonna follow people around, I'm gonna have smooth footage. But being able to get those tracking shots like that, or setting up a panoramic, or setting up a time lapse even, if you're not just recording for a long time, you can set up the photo time lapse mode and have the gimbal move while it's taking pictures. So if you wanted like a long exposure type of time lapse rather than just sped up video, which is a lot of people do with time lapses. There's lots of different ways to do a time lapse to give it more creative looks, and I'll go over those in the future as well. But I think this really helped out with the shoot. It made me really excited to see the results we had there, and I think it's gonna make the film flow a lot better and really help push the idea of how much time is passing versus just showing shots of a clock and someone doing something. It just seemed a little lame when I envisioned it in my head, because I'm typically, most of my shots that I'm doing, I already have the idea of the whole scene when I'm writing it in my head, how I want it to look as far as camera angles, who's where and all that. But those transition shots was just kind of like, I wrote it and I said, oh, I'll just figure that out later. I didn't have very much specifics in it. And so this worked out. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions about this gimbal or modes on your camera, time lapses, I have tons of videos on the channel to help with that. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new for a lot more stuff like this and behind the scenes of the movie. I'm looking forward to getting it done this year, because we've been doing a lot of filming. It's fun, but it's definitely a lot of work when you're doing it all yourself. But with that, hopefully, I'll see you soon.